Again, my name is Anniina Jokinen. I'm a senior program officer at the European Institute for Crime Prevention and Control, affiliated with United Nations, based in Helsinki, Finland. I coordinate this project, and here we have partners around Europe joining us for this EASY project final webinar. You can see the program here. So I will start myself by setting the scene and outline a bit what the EASY project is about. And I will present some of the tools that we've developed during these last 2 years. And then we will move on to Spain, to Germany, to Spain again, and then finally to Ireland. And if you go to the next slide, please. So this EASY project has been a 2-year project that we've implemented together with SOLWODI in Germany, via an University of Lleida in Spain, and with Immigrant Council of Ireland. And the aim of the project has been mainly to increase community engagement and dialogue, to raise awareness and to develop victim-centered support for victims of forced marriages, and also to build up capacity of professionals to deal with this phenomenon. So through the course of this webinar, our experts will share practical insights, best practices, and innovative approaches from Finland, Spain, Germany, and Ireland. And this is an opportunity for all of us to learn from the practical experience, from the partners, to connect with experts, and to contribute with improving support mechanisms. Through the course of this project, we've organized a series of different types of events and outreach activities, and I'm very happy about the numbers. So we've organized over 240 events to raise awareness. We've reached over 2,100 individuals, and then our German partner has provided over 470 counseling sessions with victims of forced marriage and those at risks, as well as additional 65 sessions connecting individuals with authorities. So I think these are impressive figures in terms of our outreach. Now, in this project, we've focused on forced marriage as a phenomenon that has a bit broader definition than what is used, for example, in the Istanbul Agreement. But generally, forced marriage is a situation where marriage is entered without consent of one or both parties because of threats, deception, or coercion. We know that these acts are most often perpetrated by family members or relatives of the victim or by their spouse. And of course, forced marriage can touch persons of all genders, backgrounds, and circumstances, rather than only persons from certain groups, cultures, or religions. And this includes persons with different sexual identity, for example. Often, of course, the consequences of forced marriage may be more serious for victims that are women or girls, but generally this phenomenon can touch upon all persons. Here you can see, if we put the victim of forced marriage into the center, that there are a lot of factors that complicate the issue. through research and experience from the partners, we've identified multiple forms of violence that victims of forced marriage may encounter. And there are also a lot of structural issues that are mentioned in the inner circle that affect this phenomenon. So this should be taken into account when designing activities that, for example, aim in supporting victims of forced marriage. Also, the consequences of forced marriages are multifold and very harmful. There are many different mental and physical harms that have been identified to be associated with being forced to marry, such as severe trauma, anxiety, self-harm, shame, guilt, different kind of post-traumatic stress disorders, memory loss, sleep disorders, and depression. Then there are also physical problems, and then also complications, for example, from sexually transmitted diseases or issues with reproductive or sexual health. There are also different types of more structural or societal harms, such as lack of access to education and employment opportunities, lowered expectations and ambitions, and ostracism and social isolation from family and local community. So there are a lot of things that victims of forced marriage have to deal with, and which then professionals that provide assistance to victims should take into account when designing these activities. So through the course of the project, we collected best practices from the 4 countries involved by interviewing professionals and survivors of forced marriage. And on the basis of this information, we developed a best practice booklet that place strong emphasis on victims' safety, access to mental health services, and empowerment in taking charge over their own lives. The best practice booklet recommended that victims benefit best from multidisciplinary support, which is coordinated amongst actors who understand the wider consequences and harms of forced marriage, and then that can offer support that is tailored according to the individual needs of the victim and survivors. Then we utilized also the information collected for the best practices, as well as experiences from our partners and other stakeholders in creating a toolkit for supporting victims. So this publication features very concise information about forced marriage, and then it has checklists as well as a client journey map that outline the features of forced marriage and concrete factors which professionals should take into account when they encounter potential victims and when they offer them with support. It also has a kind of a visual map with different stages, and then by mapping out the victim's journey through these stages, we create better understanding for stakeholders how they can address the challenges that victims encounter during their journey through that phases of their. There are also these kind of checklist and tips. So this is, for example, tips for encounters, so that it outlines how it is important to ensure a safe and calm meeting space so that you can talk about the issue and create trust It is also important to use a trusted neutral interpreter if it's necessary, and then using open-ended questions, and by listening neutrally, you get a better sense of the person's story, and understand better like what is going on, because it's not easy for the victims to talk about these experiences. We've also created this beneficiary checklist that has questions targeting the beneficiaries, so potential victims or persons affected by forced marriage. It has these kind of simple questions, and this is available in multiple languages. So the NGOs and other actors that are providing support to victims of forced marriage can utilize this checklist, add their own contact details, and use this as a way of initiating discussion about this topic with potential victims or those that are affected by forced marriage. And this is available already in a lot of different languages, and by the end of February we will also add a couple of more languages. So you are free to use this anywhere you want, and just add your own organization's contact details here. We also in the toolkit make this reminder to people that being forced to marry or being subjected to violence can significantly affect person's psychological well-being and their perception of their own rights and what they consider as violence or normal behavior in the first place. And also that disclosing a forced marriage situation and talking about violence requires trust and time. So it may take several meetings for the person to actually talk about their experience or disclose their experiences. Then just finally, this slide shows the different stages of the journey map. So from awareness to getting access to assistance, to short-term assistance, long-term assistance, and then finally empowerment. So this empowerment issue was raised a lot in the survivor interviews, and I will stop with this by reading two quotes from the survivors that we interviewed. The first one is a quote from an interview with the survivor in Germany. Yes, so I had a lot of help. I can tell you that I would never, and no matter how much courage I packed, I would have never done it alone, never. And then the second one is from an interview with the survivor in Spain. Let them see that they're not alone, that there are people who have gone through what they are going through, and that in the end you get through it. So these have been inspirational quotes for us that when we talk about enhancing support for the victims, we are not in this alone, but we must work together. Thank you. So that was my setting the scene part. And we will now move on to Carolina Villacampa from University of Lleida, and Carolina will talk about best practices in addressing forced marriage in Spain. Carolina.
Yeah, thanks, Anniina. I'm trying to share my presentation. I don't know if you are able to see it properly now. Yeah. Well, good afternoon. As Anniina said, I'm Carolina Villacampa from the University of Lleida, And I would like to start by thanking my colleagues from heuni for giving me the chance to present. Sorry, because I'm not at the beginning of the... I'm not at the beginning of the presentation. I see now. Okay.
Good.
So, well, I was saying that I'm grateful for because I've given the chance to present main good practices we identified in the treatment of forced marriage victims in Spain, concretely in Catalonia, in a northeastern region of the country, during the execution of the project EASY. And well, why did we specially selected Catalonia to carry out the applied research? The main reason for selecting this specific part of the territory of the state is that we had previously carried out for this project a comparative phenomenological and legal research between the 4 countries integrated in the consortium, whose results, in fact, can be consulted in the report published in 2024 you have on the screen. And in this previous research, we observed that the approach to forced marriage differs significantly between Spain and Catalonia. Well, let me explain briefly with some more detail this difference. Although forced marriage has been largely overlooked in Spain, as highlighted by the Grevio report on Spain issued in 2020, Catalonia has focused more attention on this form of violence against women, as can be observed in the temporal diagram you have on the screen. In Spain, until the passage of Organic Law 10/2022, recognizing forced marriage victims as victims of sexual violence meant that the only approach had been to criminalize forced marriage, either as a specific crime or as a form of human trafficking. Besides, the current Spanish state strategy to combat male violence focuses predominantly on sex trafficking and exploitation, with forced marriage rarely acknowledged as gender violence in official statistics, and only 23 cases identified by police since 2016. In contrast, in Catalonia, Catalonia included forced marriage and the violence against women in its laws as early as 2008, resulting in greater visibility and institutional support. The Catalan police have been documenting cases since 2009, identifying more than 200 victims. And while various programs and protocols have been approved since 2009 to address this issue in this part of the country. So based on this, the main aim of the research we carried out was to identify good practices for tackling forced marriage in Catalonia that perhaps could be implemented in the whole country, and why not in other Western Mediterranean European countries paying little attention to forced marriage. And well, with this aim, an analysis of the existing institutional documentation in Catalonia was conducted, including the contents of the key programmatic documents listed in the previous slide, and 8 semi-structured interviews were conducted with professionals from the criminal justice and care system and with survivors. You have the characteristics of this interviewed on the screen. The analysis conducted enabled us to identify 5 good practices currently being implemented in this territory, which can be framed in 3 different areas: the institutional sphere, and secondly, in the victim assistance, and finally, in law enforcement. In the institutional sphere, the protocol for the prevention and response to forced marriages in Catalonia of 2020 and its revision process stand out as a good practice one, because it helps to articulate a structured and standardized institutional response to forced marriage. It was designed based on the previous protocol for addressing forced marriages of 2014 from the province of Girona in the northeast of Catalonia. And it sets the general guidelines for the approach to this reality in Catalonia, putting the welfare of the victim before the prosecution of the crime and clearly focusing on the prevention of this process and early intervention with women at risk. It defines an institutional framework for action to combat forced marriage and assist its victims and at risk individuals, divided into 4 phases. First, prevention, aimed at raising awareness. Second, detection of potential victims. Third, care, when a specific case of forced marriage risk is identified, addressing the intervention on the basis of 2 variables: the victim's age, depending on it's a minor or adult, and the level of risk of forced marriage, depending on its on an urgent or suspected consummation. And what also means this stage, designing an intervention plan. And finally, recovery, when the design intervention plan is implemented and verified. Despite the merits of this instrument, the consideration that more attention should be paid to linking forced marriage with violence against women, distancing itself from the guilt-ridden aspect of certain cultures, led to a revision of the 2020 protocol, which crystallized in October 2023 in the forced marriage approach model. As the interviewee once said, the 2023 model of approach abandons Orientalist and culture-altering approaches, focuses on prevention and reparation, and involves survivors in the design of the institutional response offered, adopting a more survivor-centered than a victim-centered approach. Still, in the institutional sphere, good practice to consist of the preparation of local protocols allowing a more effective response to forced marriage. When a forced marriage is detected, the initial activation of assistance and institutional resources takes place precisely at the regional and local level. So the convenience of adopting this type of initiative was highlighted by 5 of the 6 professionals interviewed. Thus, initiatives have been identified in at least 2 different local areas in Catalonia with different characteristics, but with a possible significant incidence of cases of forced marriage, located near Barcelona, one of them in El Vallès Occidental, a very populated territory near Barcelona, and in rural La Segarra, in Lleida, the second one. These 2 initiatives arise from the need to respond to the situations of minors at urgent risk of marriage detected in secondary schools, despite the typology of victims mostly identified in both areas are diverse. Although these 2 local protocols were at different stages of development when the data were collected, they remained at this moment inactive because of the revision of the Catalan protocol of 2020. So we hope that they have been further worked on after the approval of this protocol, but we don't have updated information on the issue, unfortunately. Moving on to the victim assistance area, Good Practice 3 emphasizes the benefits of a support program for forced marriage victims delivered by specialized organizations, and we took here an NGO from northeastern Catalonia, Valentes I Acompanyades, who is also a member of the project as a case study. Of the actions carried out by this organization, awareness raising, prevention and intervention, its victim intervention program stands out for its completeness. The program provides an individualized work plan for each woman. The comprehensive long-term support adapts to each beneficiary space with short and medium-term objectives. It focuses on effective support, particularly for adolescents or young women at risk or recently being subjected to forced marriage, usually or normally necessitating a break from their families. So the basic pillars of their intervention program are housing resources provided by regional authorities that offer a safe living environment, emotional and psychological support provided by culturally similarly women or empowered survivors, education tailored to each girl's level, empowering them as one fundamental component of the program, and also financial support, job training, and legal assistance promoting independence and autonomy are provided. Still in the victim assistance area, one of the most important aspects enabling specialized organizations to raise awareness and to prevent and address forced marriage is the work carried out by girls and women who have been experienced or been at risk of experiencing forced marriage but gone on to successfully overcome the situation, the so-called referents. Well, in fact, these women end up playing a crucial role as mentors to other girls being assisted, because as they belong to the same cultural group and have gone through the same experience, they can become key players in supporting the victims. The survivor support and intervention is fundamental, especially on an emotional and psychological level, as interviewee 8 said. They are also an asset for detecting and preventing potential cases and raising awareness about the negative human rights consequences of forced marriage among affected communities. They participate in talks organized by the organization with members of the affected communities, and they are not viewed as agents of Western cultural patterns seeking to interfere with and control practices alien to their tradition in a kind of spirit of evangelization or civilization. So the actions in which they take part can be more effective and meaningful for these communities. And in addition, as they know this reality from inside, they are especially skilled as observers to detect and collaborate on the detection of girls at risk. Finally, concerning group practices in law enforcement, the approach to forced marriage taken by the Catalan police, regional police, the Mossos d'Esquadra, stands out because of its highly proactive and clearly victim-centered nature, as opposed to the reactive, crime-centered schemes typical of other police approaches. The Catalan police have had a specific police procedure in place for dealing with forced marriage since 1929 that structures police intervention in 4 phases that clearly inspired the structure of the 2020 Catalan Protocol. In this procedure, dedicated units specialized in victim assistance and violence against women, the so-called victim assistance units, the GAPs, play a fundamental role. As interviewee 3 shows, there is one of these GAPs in each police station, and they are coordinated by a regional victim assistance group located in each of the 9 police regions existing in Catalonia. This police approach to forced marriage is markedly proactive, oriented towards intervention in situations of risk, neutralizing the risk when possible rather than simply responding judicially. And it's also holistic, centered in the victim's well-being rather than prosecuting the crime or crimes that may have committed during the forced marriage process, without, of course, renouncing criminal intervention as a last resort. Well, after what has been said, it can be concluded that the approach to forced marriage adopted in Catalonia, more focused on crime prevention and the protection of survivors than on the prosecution of these behaviors, is faithful to the 4P policy reflected in the 4 pillars of the Istanbul Convention. It includes good practices that could be replicated with the appropriate adaptation in other Spanish territories, and perhaps they could be also useful to other Western European Mediterranean countries where forced marriage is not sufficiently addressed, as in the case of Spain. However, the research has also revealed some questionable aspects, some weaknesses of these good practices that could be improved before trying to extrapolate them to other territories or to other geographic areas. Some of the improvements we suggested in our report are reflected on the screen. I don't know if I have time to go through them, perhaps not in this moment. Anniina, we can leave it for the debate. So I'm moving on to the last slide. The results of this research has been published in 2 academic papers in Spanish and English. You can access to these papers through the QR code you have on the screen, and I will be delighted to share them with you if you are interested. And well, that's all. Thanks very much for your attention. I stop sharing to allow the others to present. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Carolina. And we were very happy to be in Catalonia last spring, hosted by University of Lleida and VIA, our Spanish partners, to learn more about the Catalan model and the best practices that we identified. So that was very interesting trip for us all. Then let's take our European tour to Germany and to our colleagues at SOLWODI. So we have Hasmik and Yasmin, who will talk about SOLWODI's work in the project and specifically with the beneficiaries. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anniina. Good afternoon. I would like to start with introducing a little bit about SOLWODI, our organization in Germany. And we will talk about the work package 3, awareness raising, community engaging activities, and our work, SOLWODI's work with beneficiaries, which my colleague Yasmin will introduce in details and talk about it more from her own experience. Would you show next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, SOLWODI is non-governmental organization. It stands for Solidarity with Women in Distress. And SOLWODI has been founded by Sister Dr. Lea Ackermann in 1985 in Germany. And 2 years ago, she also founded SOLWODI in Kenya. SOLWODI is dedicated to supporting women and girls who are affected by human trafficking, gender-based violence, forced marriages, all types of exploitation. And we are supporting particularly women refugees and migrant women. And SOLWODI has been throughout its existence, has been supporting thousands of women, helping them to rebuild their lives. And the work done by SOLWODI is crucial to empower the women and also to give them support and also long-term perspective in their lives for all these vulnerable women. SOLWODI, as I mentioned, has migrant women in distress as target group. We have 21 counseling centers. We have 14 sheltered housing and housing projects. And we also are internationally active. We are in Kenya, Romania, Austria, Hungary, and we have also cooperations with NGOs all over the world. Next, please. Thank you. Our main focus areas are psychosocial counseling, collaboration with shelters, national and international networking, return assistance, and accompanying our beneficiary women. Next, please. I would like to share also some numbers about our beneficiaries. This is information from our last annual report. SOLWODI has been supporting 2,586 women from 115 countries who contacted SOLWODI for the first time in 2024. The main countries were African countries, mostly from Nigeria, and Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe. And the main issues with which our beneficiary women referred to us, as you may see, with different proportion, they were asylum, violence, prostitution, crimes against honor, human trafficking, forced marriage, family issues, and other types of gender-based violence. Thank you. Next, please. Now I would like to speak about our colleagues and the work done in the work package 3 for awareness raising and community engaging activities. In the project, we have been working with our 3 counseling centers in Mainz, in Regensburg, and in Fulda. And my colleagues in the project are Luisa Wertheim, counselor in our counseling center in Fulda, Yasmin, Martina, Turgut, who will also present today, our counselor at our counseling center in Mainz, and Christel Holzbauer, our counselor at our counseling center in Regensburg. And within the work package, we have been done counseling on one-on-one counseling, info cafes, and organized also workshops at schools. And now some general total numbers. 31 info cafes have been organized by SOLWODI counseling centers in Mainz, Fulda, and Regensburg, mainly to reach vulnerable women and girls, as well as network partners. And additional 2 info cafes have been scheduled for February this year. 16 workshops and 1 info cafe have been organized in local schools to increase awareness on forced marriages among students. And additional 3 schools workshops have been scheduled for February this year again. And then in addition, we have also organized 6 open consultation hours about which Yasmin will talk later a bit more. And we have also organized 1 workshop for women and 2 for interpreters. And during the project until January this year, in all our counseling centers, we have provided in total 477 one-on-one counseling sessions, which were exclusively for women and girls. In Regensburg, we have done counseling sessions which amounted to 208, in Mainz 147, and in Fulda 122. And when taking into account the counseling sessions, which also include contact with the authorities, then the total number is higher. We have provided then 542 counseling sessions. Additional counseling sessions will be provided still until the end of the project this year, until the end of February. And the main beneficiaries of the sessions have been exclusively women and girls, although they may have had children of their own, both boys and girls. The most common origin countries of the beneficiaries included countries such as Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Next slide, please. And there was supposed to have family counseling as well with family members, but no sessions including family members or other relevant members of the community have been organized by SOLWODI counseling centers, as no suitable clients for such sessions were identified. Nevertheless, we have done an amendment, and according to the amendment, we have provided more one-on-one counseling sessions and school workshops. And the one-on-one counseling has given our beneficiaries the opportunity to receive social, legal, and emotional support in their personal situations, in some cases potentially preventing forced marriages. They have also supported victims to leave an abusive relationship, to find shelter, or to consult with authorities on their options and their situations. And before I give the floor to my colleague Yasmin, I would like to thank my colleagues and our partners in the project for the great joint work done together. It was really a great experience for all of us. Thank you. Yasmin, please.
Thank you, Hasmik. Hello also from my side. I would like to tell you something about our practical work, and I will start with the info cafes. Where did we offer these info cafes? We offered it in shared accommodation centers, also in anchor centers in Bavaria, but also in public spaces as well as in our offices. And with these info cafes, we wanted to make an encounters possible and that the women get in contact. We also wanted to create a safe space for the women to talk about forced marriages and honor-based violence. And another main goal was to strengthen the women among themselves. We have offered a low threshold program for these purposes. We offered, for example, language courses, women's meetings, but also do-it-yourself projects for these purposes. And our aim was to get into conversation with the women. And the best way to do this is with a cup of coffee or tea. This enabled us to build relationships, and in the best case scenario, the women will contact us for help or get connected with each other. Next, please. In addition to the info cafes, we also offered workshops in schools, and for that we have written to schools. In some schools there were already cooperations before. We have adapted the content of the workshops to the respective school types and classes. And some of us offered two-part workshops for this purpose. For us, it was important that it took place before the school holidays. And we also organized a safe space during and after the workshops. Yeah, how were the workshops received? The pupils have actively participated. They were very motivated to talk about their culture, about honor, about what they think about the role of a man or a woman. And we talked also a lot about marriage, about forced marriage, about honor-based violence. And we all learned from each other. Also, the schools would like to continue the workshops for the coming school years. And finally, new cooperations with schools were established. At one school, this cooperation has led to us offering an open counseling session for the pupils once in a month. This is now also taking place in another partner school. And we can describe this as a best practice in Germany. Next, please. And now I want to present you a case study from Mainz. It's the story of Eva. Eva is a 19-year-old young woman from Syria, and she came here in 2015 with her family. They applied for asylum, and now they have the resident permit. Eva is the oldest of 3 children. She has a younger brother and a younger sister. With her father, she had a really good relationship. With her mother, it was a little bit difficult because she is very conservative. Eva is a very smart and tough young woman. She learned the German language really fast and finished the school here. She is really good integrated in here in Germany, and she attended to a vocational school, and she had a boyfriend. Her parents didn't accept this boyfriend, and they started searching for a man for Eva. Eva felt very unhappy with this situation and escaped from home. She opened up to her tutor, and the tutor contacted her teacher and the school social worker. The school social worker did directly call us. So we meet Eva and talked about her situation, what she wants, what her parents want, what we can offer her to her, and what is possible here in Germany. We told her about shelters, which are specialized for forced marriages, so she can start a new life in another city. But Eva didn't agree because of her upcoming final exam. And so she turned back to her family. The pressure increased, and her parents threatened her with the school. Eva was scared about it and ended her relationship, and she agreed to the engagement. With the hope everything would go well, she agreed to get married. And for the marriage, the husband and his family paid a bride price around 20,000 euros. Next, please. Eva was unhappy with this situation, and she wanted to divorce. She talked with her parents, but they didn't agree and forced her to stay in this marriage. They explained her that with a divorce, they have to pay the whole money back, and they couldn't because they spent it. Eva contacted us again and asked for help. We put her into a hotel and searched for a shelter, but we didn't find one. During this time, Eva felt bad about her situation and her family, and she turned back to her family again. But her family weren't happy with that, and they put more pressure on Eva and threatened her. They started also beating her. Eva called us again, and we informed the police. The police went there for an intervention, and they took Eva from her family. Again, we put her into a hotel, and finally we found a shelter in the same city. During this time, Eva tried to talk with her father about the divorce, but he didn't agree, but later he did. Now Eva lives with her former boyfriend. They got married. She has completed the training and works as a nurse. Next, please. Well, what were the challenges and difficulties of this case? On the one hand, it was due to the lack of shelter, and this is the most problem what we have in Germany. We have too less shelters for all the people, for all the women especially. But the client's age also caused us big difficulties. The Youth Welfare Office often refuses to cover the financing cost if you are older than 18 years. If you are younger than 18, then they have to pay the costs. But if you are 18 years old or older, then they aren't forced to pay it. On the other hand, the upcoming final exam cost us great difficulties too. The client didn't want to leave the city for safety reasons, and therefore we had to organize a safe place in the same city. And this was and is still an exceptional case for us. And I think it probably only went well because of the great cooperation with the police. Another difficulty was the conditions for the divorce I told before. Despite these points, some things went well, and I would like to point that out here. This was mainly due to the good cooperation with the police. In this case, they were very sensitive and they believed in her, and they talked very strictly with the parents. And I think that that worked also. Also, the school social worker reacted really fast, so we were able to talk to Eva without losing much time. But Eva also was really tough and made a good job. She was during the whole time open and transparent in her in what she wants and in her conversation. And this helped us, but also our network partners, to create a safe space for her. And these are the two keys in our job: good networking and a transparent conversation. Thank you for your attention, and thank you also, guys.
Okay, thanks so much, Yasmin and Hasmik. Also, a lot of important and interesting work that you have been doing in Germany, and the number of counseling sessions that your centers have provided is very, very impressive. Let's now continue with our European tour back to Spain or Catalonia and Girona. Pablo, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Girona, Catalonia. And first of all, say that it's been a big pleasure to work with the EC team during these 2 years and offer from Valentas y Acompanyades our experience to such an unnecessary and impactful goal like end the forced marriages. I will be brief and I will talk a little bit about how Valentas y Acompanyades works with the beneficiaries, that only highlights. And in the second part, I will share with you some thoughts or some ideas that during these 2 years that here in Valentas y Acompanyades we made a lot of social and community development with people, with men, with women, and with teenagers, talking about the forced marriage. No, this is the idea. Valentas y Acompanyades is a small NGO that we are specialized in intervention, but thanks to the EC project, that little by little we are improving our prevention and our awareness raising activities. That this is the key, no? Not only give a response, not we have to work hard to prevent the forced marriage. The idea is this, no? We try to provide tools, resources, and strategies to these girls, to these women, that they want to be independent, self-reliant women. The idea is to stop being victims and become a strong woman with the capacity to uphold their own decisions. This is the key. The teenagers and adult women who are currently victims, finding themselves defenseless and alone, with attitudes that fluctuate between internalized consent, generalized silence, protest, and sustained rebellion with the right support, can win the day against the enormous pressure brought to bear by their family and community. Their families and their community, another keys in this history. I will tell you a little secret that is perhaps the key of our little NGO. No, it's a joke. The name of Valentas y Acompanyades. The translation to English is something like courageous and supported. No, it's a little bit poetic. This reflects the NGO's twofold approach to the situation. One, courageous, for having the courage to withstand the impact and the consequences of their free decision, such as a family conflict, breaking ties with the family and culture, and expulsion from their community. Can you imagine this situation? It happens to you. And second, you can only be courageous if you are not some support, and you are supported here, to feel supported in their decision from the personal safety viewpoint, as they are victims of a clear attack of women's rights. They need courage, and lots of it, to go against the family's will, but they also need comprehensive support in order to resist pressure from their community and progress along the path to becoming free women. Generally, and we are talking some tips about our methodology, we apply 4 tips. First of all, a comprehensive and continued support to the courageous women who are facing the problem of a forced marriage. Second, provision of education and training for teenagers. Education is the key that will open the doors for a free life. Remedial classes, workshops, and other activities intended to foster personal empowerment, the acquisition of tools for full social integration. This is another key, because most of them women, they are not integrated in our community. And the opportunity to broaden one's mind and work on attitudes, values, and relational skills. These relational skills are very, very important. And increase the victim emotional strength and offer strategies for overcoming the traumatic situation they have experienced, and view the future with optimism. This is a principal care that we offer, the point of view of the optimism in life, because they are young and they have to face the rest of their lives with optimism, because these experiences is the real situation that in the future will happen, that you will help other girls that are suffering this situation. This is so pretty. And some of these topics that in our methodology are described very, very well in our product of EASY project, the best practices. And we are proud to offer this model. And another key, the use of the role models from their own culture. This is very, very important. We told them reference. And finishing, to talk about our methodology, is to focus in the psychological care of these women. When the young woman have made the decision and reject the forced marriage, and the support and emotional guidance they receive is insufficient in the most of the cases, they need a specialized psychological care. It's simple. We had 2 psychologist girls here in Valentes I Acompanyades, and they have a lot of work. And for finishing, the temporary shelters flat. We have the lucky. We are lucky that we have a good agreement with the Catalan government housing department, and we have 3 flats full of girls that they have to leave the family home precipitately, and who have and they didn't have no social or family support. And this is the key to begin a new life, no? A shelter. And this, I hope I be clear during this little speech, and let's take a look how much work we made in Valentas inside the EASY project, and we are very, very happy because we take a lot of experience in social and community development in our city and in our region, Girona. We had the opportunity to be in contact directly and strong contact with some of the most important NGOs, littles, but important NGOs in our territory, that they are so close to the community that we need to be in touch, because in the end we are talking about nationalities, religion, things like this, but we need to be in touch with this community, that is where these things happens, no? Three topics. First of all, work with women, only women. Second, work with men, only men. And third, work with teenagers in high schools. Okay? And if you want, I can talk a little bit about, we prefer to show some photographs and take a look how much beauty is to join people in during 20 or 10 hours in a month, and give them a space to express themselves, talking about, in the end of these sessions, of course, talking about the forced marriage, what they think about this phenomenon, because they have a lot of things to say, because in the end, this is a problem that we share like human beings, not like citizens of this or another country. We started all the sessions speaking about how in Spain 100 years ago the forced marriage was used in a lot of places. So this is a joy, this is a work to do all together, no? We made, I try to remember, around 80 hours in total with women, and we arrived around 75 women, and we are talking about sessions of minimum 6 or 8 hours. So grateful, and we made some informs, and we take a lot of notes about the things that we spoke. They spoke, because I didn't been there. I've been with men, okay? My colleagues with women, but we have a lot of notes, and very optimistic thoughts from these women, that a lot of them, they suffered a forced marriage, and it's normal from their countries, and so emotional, these sessions. A little bit talk about men's. We have a lot of work to do here. No, we can focus only the work in women, because the other hand is how much time we spend to trying change mentalities, that nowadays we are suffering a new wave of matching, or a new wave of conservatism. So funny and so emotional, share these moments with young men, that that it was not easy to take touch with this collective, because with men, when men start to talk about internal things, or it's difficult, no? But little by little, and with some snacks or some Coca-Colas or some make the space safe, and talk without not problems men's about sexuality or about role genders or about matches that we use normally. And finishing, the other tip and the other focus is in young people, and we had the lucky to arrive to an agreement with a high school that we are in front of our office here in Salt, Girona, and we worked hard in one of the most mixed or intercultural high schools if I say Catalonia, I say Spain for sure. And we offered around 30 hours of gender topics or equality roles with teenagers around 12, 30, 40 years old, and using the end of these sessions to talk about the forced marriage with a lot of care, little by little, no, but in the end is to use the public space, like is the high school, to normalize our speech of human rights with these young people, because this is another key, that in the high school, in the public spaces, we have to be clear with this violation or this attack against the human right that is passively, no, to choose the person that you want to share your life. And I think that I'm finishing. I will give you the thanks all the time for the shares, viewings, our meetings in Germany and here in Spain, and a big hug from Valentes I Acompanyades.
Thanks so much, Pablo. Also very impressive work in reaching out to the different groups of beneficiaries, both men and women, as well as then teenagers in schools. And as I said previously, we were very lucky to be able to also visit you guys in Girona last spring. It was lovely. Then let's go and finish our European tour by going to Ireland. And Val, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi everybody. Good afternoon. Directly from Dublin. My name is Valéria Aquino. I am the integration manager at the Immigrant Council of Ireland, based in Dublin as well. You can go for the next one. Yeah. The Immigrant Council of Ireland, we are a human rights organization in an independent law center, and we work on advocating and protecting the rights of migrants here in Ireland. A little bit of what we do about our work. We provide information and legal advice to migrants and their families. We support the most vulnerable migrants, for example, victims of human trafficking, victims of domestic violence, unaccompanied minor children, and also, of course, victims of forced marriages. We work a lot on capacity building and leadership development. Especially political participation. So we support migrants on getting to know their political and voting rights in the country, but also supporting them if they eventually want to become more active politically or even run for elections. We also working on tackling racism and promoting participation and inclusion of migrants. We work a lot in partnership with local and national government in Ireland. So we support local authorities on developing and implementing their local integration strategies, and also anything to connect them better with migrant communities. And we also have an education program called Show Race of the Red Card, where we promote and raise awareness on the issue of races using sports and education. Can go ahead. Next one. I'm here today to talk a little bit about our contribution on the EASY project. When we thought about like how we would do the outreach here in Ireland, we decided to use the Community Navigators module. The Community Navigators, they are basically like trusted community members, and we train them to provide information and to connect migrant communities to services. So the community navigators, they are more than someone that they have the knowledge of the language. They are someone that they are already in a position of respect and trust in their community. So we skip this part on building trust, and we go directly on how to inform them to access the services that is available for them, and how we can provide information in a way that is like reliable and also like empowered way to our migrant communities here. This module, the Community Navigators, we learned about from our partners from the Partnerships for New Americans in the US. They are using this module since 2015 very successfully, and they trained up to now like more than 11,000 community navigators. For them in the US, they use the community navigators a lot, of course, to inform communities about the immigration rights, a lot on political participation as well, to get people registered to vote and to show up to vote. And here in Ireland, we used the Community Navigators method for the first time in 2021 in a project that was focusing on reaching out to victims and potential victims of domestic abuse. At the time, in 2021, we had 6 community navigators. We were extremely busy, like more than we expected. And it was a very good experience for us. So when we received the invitation to participate in the EASY project, we say, I think it is our chance again to bring back the community navigators and try to raise awareness on the issue of forced marriages. Next slide. So the community navigators, like we try to be very clear what the role of the navigator is, because of course, when you are providing a service for a very specific community group, like migrants, for example, and connecting them to mainstream services, you need to be very careful not to become the only thing that they have. So when we started to do outreach and connecting migrants to services, sometimes they would counter-refer to us, send us back to us. Oh, no, but like you help them because you are the specialists to deal with migrants. But so we need to really reinforce that we are there just to make the connection. So how is the workflow of a community navigator? The community navigator, the first step is to inform, and they can inform through social media, through community outreach, through activities like talks, webinars, events. We do a lot, instead of organizing events ourselves, we ask for organizations that are already organizing events if we can have a couple of minutes to talk about the issue there. So it is the way we do. We try to make as easier as possible and more effective as possible as well. The second one is how this contact can be made, like the client can contact the navigator or the navigator would reach out to the person. So we can have both ways. So the navigator would access the needs of this person and refer this person to a service or to the information they need. And that's it. And it is the end of the activity and the work of the navigator there. Of course, the person is still connected with them if they have any further questions, but the navigator is not a service provider. They just provide information and refer and connect people to services. The next one. At the EASY project, of course, it is a big challenge. We just had 3 placements for navigators in this project. So what we tried to do, we recruited 3 people in the communities we think that are disproportionately affected by this issue. So we were able to recruit 3 navigators, and we were able to provide information and referral in 7 different languages, which was really a good result for us. And also, we try to understand through the navigator what is the best way to do this outreach. So we had and organized webinars. We were in community meetings. Navigator did radio interviews. We worked a lot on social media as well, sharing information through groups. For some communities, WhatsApp groups worked really well as well. So what we did, we tried to adapt how this outreach would be made depending on the needs of that community. But of course, just with 3 navigators, we couldn't reach out to a huge amount of people, but the ones we did, it was with really high quality, with nice information, and also we were able to give them all the attention they need at the moment. The next one, next slide. This project was a little bit more challenge for us than our first time running the community navigators. Of course, the issue of forced and early marriages is a complex issue, and it's hard for people to really realize that they are victims, or there is people experiencing this around them. There is also a lack of awareness from communities and from service providers. From communities, we would approach them and they would say, oh, I don't think this is a relevant issue for my community. But when you start to talk to them about what a forced marriage is, how we can be visible for you, how you can identify for a forced marriage victim, and so they just click, oh yeah, no, actually I think this makes sense for us. And so, but until you are in that stage of okay, this makes sense for me, now I want to hear what you have to say, it was a little bit more slow, the process of reaching out to these communities. For service providers as well, I think most of the cases that are coming for services providers, they are kind of a intersection kind of link with human trafficking and also domestic abuse. So if they are not paying attention on the signs of forced marriages, they would not identify this case as also a forced marriage case. So for us, it was important as well to tell them to be aware of this issue and be able to identify and to treat and support as such. Also, we had the limited time for the navigators to engage in this project and to engage with their communities. The navigators, they had their own jobs and they were working in the project for 1 day a week to 7 hours a week. So you have a limitation on the time as well that you have to engage in the project. But with all the challenges that we faced, I think we could deliver a very nice service, and we could support the communities and raise awareness on the issue as best as we could. Oh, can you go back? We also because when you are reaching out to communities to talk about this issue of forced marriages, of course, you are not just telling people very openly, come to join us for this meeting that we are discussing forced marriages. We need to create a space where people feel safe. So normally what we would do, we would kind of like have like a mix of informations, which also includes forced marriages, but we would talk about women's services and rights. We would talk about domestic abuse or human health, woman health, and so you introduced also forced marriages on this mix. And for us, as a positive outcome of this project is that not just we raise awareness on forced marriages, but we were able to reach out to communities on broader issues like immigration, domestic violence, and human trafficking. So it was even more like it went beyond to just forced marriages. And also like we were able to develop information materials and all the publications at Easy Project that it remain useful for like beyond the project lifetime, and even internally as well, like all the resources, like list of contacts of services that we are using to this date. So we are very grateful to be part of the project, and we are looking forward to see what the future holds for us. What is the next step?
Great, thank you, Val. So now we have gone through all the presentations, and you have a chance to ask some questions. I'm now going over in the chat because I think there was one question already previously that was I selected for the panel discussion here. I think maybe Carolina, you could reply to this. There's a question: in what kind of cases is there also exploitation in or of the forced marriage in relation to human trafficking?
Well, I think so. I think I can try to respond in terms that it can be considered that forcing someone to marry might be a channel into a situation of exploitation, at least as domestic exploitation, because it means that the person who forces another, or the person beneficiary of forcing another to marry with him, is taking profit from someone who is working at home normally, not paying this person. So we could understand that this is a situation of economic exploitation. And also because forcing someone who have sexual intercourse in a forced marriage means also a way of sexual exploitation. So forcing someone to marry has always been, or can be always considered a way through which exploit the person forced. However, as you know, recently the directive on human trafficking was amended. The directive of human trafficking of 2011 was amended in 2020 and 2024, and now it's clear that forcing someone to marry, to force marriage, is in itself a type of trafficking. So it should be criminalized as a type of trafficking in every European country. Some European countries it's also criminalized as such, for instance in the case of Spain or in the case of Finland, if I'm not mistaken. In others not, but I'm sure that the rest of the countries are going to implement the directive, the human trafficking directive amended, and in the respective legislation, so it's gonna appear in the human trafficking crime. I don't know if I have answered the question.
Thank you, Carolina. Yes, I just wanted to add that indeed forced marriage in the Finnish context is criminalized mainly as a form of human trafficking, and we just amended our trafficking legislation in Finland. So from the beginning of this year, forced marriage is explicitly mentioned in our trafficking legislation, and it uses this kind of broader definition of forced marriage, which also includes situations where it is not possible for the person to leave marriage, so that they're stopped from leaving. And it also includes so-called religious unions, so not just like legally valid marriages, but also these kind of religious unions could be applied to this. Obviously, our trafficking legislation also previously had this, but it was like as a condition contrary to human dignity was the mention, but now it's explicitly there. And indeed, it will be interesting to see what will happen when other European countries also need to adapt their trafficking legislation. And Spain also has forced marriage explicitly mentioned in the trafficking legislation.
Yeah, in fact, we have it criminalized explicitly since 2015.
Yes.
And answering one question which is in the chat already, we have post-marriage doubly criminalized as a crime itself and as a human trafficking crime, but most cases of post-marriage are being prosecuted in Spain as human trafficking cases more than first marriage cases, because the means to commit human trafficking are less restricted than the means to commit forced marriage, and also because the punishment is much higher. So most of the cases of of forced marriage in our country are being prosecuted as human trafficking cases, unless they end up becoming domestic violence situations where, well, in this case, prosecutions for domestic violence are being held.
Yes, and then we had a question from Susan Hoff that do the cases you have assisted qualify mostly as human trafficking? I assume that this is targeting especially the NGO partners here. I can just say that we have country-specific differences in relation to this, and I believe that, for example, in Germany, those cases are you've assisted are forced marriage cases based on separate criminalization of forced marriage rather than human trafficking cases, right? Yeah. Then there's a question in terms of rates of incidents based especially on research findings and research literature. What are the most common mechanisms involved in conducting forced marriage and why? Can you please elaborate on this? Carolina, would you like?
If I may, and I'm sure that Hasmik, Valéria, Yasmin, or even Pablo can add something what I'm going to answer, because I'm going to answer the question from the point of view of a researcher, and they have much more experience than me on addressing this situation practically. But from a research we conducted on forced marriage 5 years ago, we realized that most of the cases of forced marriage can be considered as family conducted processes, in terms that usually soft commission means like family tradition or respect to parents, or keep linked to the sexual behavior you are expected to have. Those mechanisms used to force women in a highly conditioned consent to marry, while examples of more severe means like using directly threats or for instance violence, open violence, are much less common, right? This does not mean that if the woman or the women forced to marry or groomed into marriage, they haven't not chosen to contract, react against it, and they try to follow their, their heart, and they are not interested in following their family's rules. is when at least the kidnapping or when the increasing of the means can appear. This is my experience, but I'm sure that the rest of the members of the project can add something to this.
Yes, do any of you want to also say something about the methods? Okay. Yes, I think we refer to research literature on this in the best practice booklet, so you can also take a look at there. And then Carolina has written several articles about this if you're looking for research articles in specifically on this. Then I think I will ask a question myself to get also the colleagues talking, and I will ask what was the biggest lesson you learned from organizing these outreach activities with beneficiaries that you discussed? Maybe Yasmin, would you like to maybe share a lesson learned for Pablo?
Let's go. For example, we think in Valenta that we need to offer a really able and a long-term solution to the problem. Why? I'm not being here in the beginning of Valentas and Acompañadas, but the founders and the people that is here from the beginning say that in these beginnings we didn't receive it a lot of users or many beneficiaries at this beginning because how can I say it? No one believed it that we could help these girls for a long time. Do you understand me? Because we are talking about that perhaps can happen this aid during 1 year, 2 years, no? 2 years to rent a flat and all the budget that we need to keep during 2 years and a girl. No, we need to offer this image that we can stand the aid to these girls, no? And perhaps nowadays that a lot of people here in Catalonia know Valentas y Acompañadas, a girl that is suffering this pain arrive to our web and say and can imagine a new life with us, no? But the social public services perhaps is not offering or publicizing this help, no?
Yes. And then just to get Yasmin, you have been visiting schools, for example, and you are offering these consultation hours. Do you see that there's like what could be done based on what you've learned from being there present at the schools? How can we talk about this issue with youth and provide assistance?
Yeah, we learned that we have to be more present in schools to make more workshops because after these workshops during to our open counseling sessions the pupils came and they had different kind of problems and questions, and not only for forced marriage, also problems with parents about education at home, and but also cases like forced marriages, and we are now talking with another school to be more present there, to make more workshops there, not only for one time. I think they have to see us more than 1 or 2 workshop sessions, so they can see that we are present, and they I think the way to talk with us will be easier for them when we are more present there, not only in the workshops, but also in the schools.
Thank you very much. I realize that we are running out of time. Do colleagues, you still have a couple of minutes if I ask one or two more questions from the chat? You have, yes. Okay. So there was a question about Catalonian police and how they are trained. Carolina, could you say very briefly something on this?
Yeah, they have a program from 29. It's like a guideline to say how they have to address this issue. It's quite proactively, but their type of intervention depends on whether the victim is a minor or the victim is an adult. If the victim is a minor, of course, they have the obligation to report to the criminal justice system authorities to proceed to address the situation. If the minor, after trying to mediate with the family and trying to understand if there's an option to address the situation before making the criminal system to enter into the issue. If the victim is an adult, of course, they always listen what the adult preferences are, because they cannot decide for this adult. But the thing here, and I would like to highlight this, is that very specific way of addressing it, because it's very proactive and very crime-centered. It's not the way of other law enforcement agencies in Catalonia, and I guess that in Spain, and I guess that in other European countries address this reality, which is much more reactive, much more from the criminal justice system perspective. It's a very victim-centered approach. This is the particularity, I would say. Anyway, if anyone has more interest, I don't want to consume more time with that, but please feel free. You have my email in the chat. Feel free to contact me, and I will be glad to explain in more detail.
Yes, thanks so much, Carolina. And yes, we were quite impressed when we met with Catalonian police in last spring about their forward-thinking opinions about this topic. But I think now we have already gone 5 minutes over the time, so I think it is time to thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you to my amazing EASY colleagues here, or representing all the organizations that are our partners, as well as colleagues at Heuni. We would be very, very, very grateful if you could use just 1 minute to click on this link and give us some feedback, or use the QR code. And please don't hesitate to be in touch with us. All the materials that we've developed in the project are freely available and can be used and are available in multiple languages. Be in touch with us if you're interested in collaboration. And then really, we hope that the tools that we've created and the work that we've done will enhance the rights and support to victims of forced marriage and those that are affected by this phenomenon. Thank you very much, and we will be in touch.